is, pardon me, but can you spare some change? Who here can really help me with some change? Seriously, dig in your pockets, grab your purse. Who can help me with a little bit of change? I'm being serious. I need some change. I need help with some change. Somebody reach into a purse or a pocket. I know you're eating, it's inconvenient. All right, good. We have one person that can help me with change. Let's see. I knew it was going to come from a purse. Thank you. So, I had two people who can help me with change. So the first lesson I'm going to teach you, this is how you receive tips when you're doing a presentation. Second lesson I'm going to teach you is that's tax deductible. You're welcome. But the point is, in the entire room, there was only two people that could help me with change. And that's the situation in most organizations today. In most organizations, people need help with change, but only one or two people have the resources or ability to help. But the real question is, how many people in an organization should be able to help with change?
Everybody.
Everyone should be able to help with change. You're absolutely right. This is an ability that should be built into all levels of the organization. Because otherwise, somebody like me who needs help with change, how are we going to find those one or two people that are going to help? Do you think we're going to go looking? No, we're not going to go looking. Or, I guess, you could take the approach that a gentleman took with me at the gas station the other day. I was sitting there pumping my gas and Facebooking, because that's what we all do. And I was Facebooking, and this guy was walking up. He's like, buddy, 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 buddy. And he kept getting closer, and everybody has to know I'm getting gas, so I'm not going to interrupt that. And finally he goes, excuse me, hey, can you help me with some change? I need gas or beer, whatever he wanted. And I put in my pockets. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have any change. All I have is credit cards. And he goes, oh, that's fine. You could put it right into the tank. I wasn't moved enough to help this individual, but it got me thinking. You know, this is really how most organizations think about change. I don't want to deal with the change. Let's not worry about all that. I just want the end results. Put it right into my tank. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today is what change can we spare? Talk about a framework for helping with change. What if no one can help with change? How do we tell them that we can't spare change? And finally, I'm going to share some missed opportunities of spare change that I've learned in my many years of experience. What change can we spare? I want you to take a look at this image while you eat. And it's okay, keep eating, it's all right. Take a look at this image, and I want you to imagine this as an entire organization. These are all people of an organization. From executives all the way down to the frontline workers, everyone in the organization is an employee first, which means change management has to happen at all levels of the organization. Some change management programs don't focus on the entire organization, only focus on a small part of the organization. And so what we're going to do real quick is we're going to take this organization apart and talk about it in pieces. The first one we're going to talk about is the C. We're going to call this the managers of the organization. Now, managers play a critical role in change management and are often one of the most overlooked groups in a change management effort. The managers are one of the most important groups because they are the ones working with the people that we want to do something differently. They are the first line of resistance management. They're the first line of coaching. They're the first line of making sure that the people are adopting and utilizing the change. So it's our responsibility to make sure that they have the tools and the resources to do their jobs effectively. Now let's look at the E. And we'll call this the executives of the organization. Pretty clever, right, E? However, this isn't a good representative sample group of them, so we're going to get rid of most of that E and just, there you go. That's a pretty good sample representative group of the executives in the organization. Now, they have a really important job because they are the change sponsors, the change champions. They're the ones who need to be out there active and visible during the change. Now, what managers do for employees, executives need to be doing for the managers. When it comes to being a sponsor of change, there's really three kind of places a sponsor could be. You could be an active, visible sponsor. You You are on the side of the change, or you're neutral, right? You're indifferent, or you're against the change. What I want to warn you is that the neutral or indifferent executives are also a risk. Because we've all heard that saying, right? If you're not with us, you're
Against us.
against us, right? But not truly against us, but in the sense of they're not going to be doing what we need them to be doing to be sponsoring the change. Because all the rest of these employees in the organization are going to be looking at these executives for how they feel about the change or how they act towards it, so we know how we should feel and act towards that change. So let's take a look at this whole big picture again. And when we have an organization with times of change, if our managers don't have the tools and resources they need, and if our executives aren't on board, the employees are left to hang. Change happens one person at a time. One person at a time. Which means that this is a decision to change that each person is going to have to make. And because of this decision, we need to make sure we're doing our job to have everything that they need. The understanding, the awareness, the desire, everything that we need them to have so they can make that decision. Because if they decide to leave, they're taking valuable knowledge and valuable resources with them. And so it's important that we focus on the individual. So how do we focus on that individual? There's a lot of change management methodologies out there, right? What are some of the methodologies we know about? Cotter's one. Proci.
Connors. Sorry.
Yes, any other one? We all can agree. What's that?
Homemade.
Homegrown, absolutely. There's a lot of change management methodologies out there. And every methodology has its good parts, and a lot of them are very similar. But more than just having a solid methodology, you need a solid framework for individual change. That framework is going to be what guides your change management strategy. It's going to guide your communications plan. It's going to guide your training plan. And it's going to be guiding the coaching that our managers need to be giving our people. Here's a framework. All of you have been given this ADKAR book. It's a gift for you from Proci and MSS. And this is a framework on which we can help guide change at an individual level. And what the model is, it's awareness, desire. So awareness, what's going on? How am I going to be impacted? Desire. How does this really fit with organizational objectives? How does this fit with the goals of my department? And how does it fit to my values? Who I am as a person. And what we all really know most is what's in it for me. And then we got to make sure that they have the knowledge. This is the knowledge, skills, and ability to perform in real life. And then we need to reinforce that positive change. So let me give you a personal example to kind of help walk you through how this could really work on a strategy or as well as an individual change basis. Who here has a kid above the age of 15? Who here has ever been a kid above the age of 15? All right, now that I've got everybody involved. My son is 15. He just got old enough to get a learner's permit. He was aware of that. Oh, and he made sure the rest of us were aware of that too. And he had the desire. Because really, what kid wants to keep getting dropped off and picked up by a mom with a mud pack on her face and stuff all in her hair and curlers? But the knowledge. He didn't read that book very good, so he was lacking in knowledge. So therefore, his ability to take the test was low, and he failed his first time. Even though he has the strong reinforcement coming of every 15 or 16-year-old teenage boy thinks of a car and a driver's license as a way of being able to date. So he had that positive strong reinforcement. Well, because he's lacking in knowledge, we still had the awareness. His desire was even greater now, because who wants to be the kid that fails twice? And so he increased his knowledge, and my son's kind of a kinesthetic learner, which means more than reading it, he also licked it and banged his head on it to make sure he really got everything out of it. Which increased his ability. He passed the test the second time, and he still has that positive reinforcement of, I'm going to go on a date someday, Dad. So as you can see, this can be used as a diagnostic tool of what's wrong, and it can also be used as a support tool. Now, with this model, we can apply it to many different ways. Now, This is an individual change model. I'm not encouraging you to go home and use it on your significant others for something you want them to change. But it will work. And if you do, send me an email. Let me know how it went. So what if no one can help with change? There's all things we need to know about our projects. We all know about our project, what it is, why are we changing, what are we changing, and who will be changing. What a lot of projects don't look at are what part of the outcomes we want from our project are tied to people doing something differently. Change management is empowering organizational leaders to help their people do something differently. So what part of that do something differently is required to hit those project benefit realizations? And so if we don't have people doing something differently, if we don't have them doing their job differently, then we're not going to reach the outcomes that we desire. We're not going to, it doesn't matter what change we're implementing, and it doesn't matter what we wanted our outcomes to be from the beginning. We're not going to reach those. So we need to find out what part of these project benefits, this ROI, is dependent on people doing something differently. So how do we tell them we can't spare change? So, I don't know what kind of change I was given. I heard that she went on a trip to Canada soon, so there may be a loony in here or something. But in my pocket, in my hand now, I have change. What kind of change do I have?
Penny.
What kind of change do I have? We don't know. What can we buy with this? We don't know. How much is it? We don't know. See, the problem is all we know is we have change. And so what can we do to manage this change so we can be able to answer our questions and concerns? What can we do with it? Let's say it's a bigger amount of change. What can we do with it?
Analyze it and count it.
Analyze it, count it. What else? We can go to Vegas and find out what slot machines take this change. Try to double our money. We can roll it. We could take it to a bank. The point is, to be able to utilize this change, we have to be able to identify what it is. We need to plan for what we're going to do. We have to do the activities we plan for, and most importantly, we have to measure it. That's how we tell them that we can't spare change. See, the results of managed change are higher speed of adoption, how quickly people get on board, higher utilization and proficiency, how many people get on board, and higher proficiency, which is how efficiently they get on board and be able to do what we need them to do differently. In this graph, we have the red bars, and the red bars are unmanaged change. And then we have the green bars, which are managed change. The difference between the two is what we drive with change management. The increase in the speed of adoption, as well as the rate of utilization and proficiency. When we look at the difference here, what part of that change can we spare? This is our higher project benefit realization, as well as our higher return on investment for a program. So, if we can't spare this change, we need to be able to leverage every possible opportunity that we have. And I want to talk to you about a couple missed opportunities that I've seen spared change kind of throughout my career. The first one I'm talking to you about, stakeholder identification. Now these are just a little bit of nuggets of information. I have a lot more than this. I'm timed, so I can only provide you some of them. But stakeholder identification. A lot of companies want to take a quick swipe, create 3 to 5 stakeholder groups, and go forward from there. But in reality, we need to look at the breadth of our stakeholders. When we look at the breadth, let's say you're Wells Fargo, and you're implementing a new teller system for our cashiers and tellers to be helping people on the other side of the glass. Well, when they implement it, they have a learning curve, service times are low, I'm standing in line waiting to get help. I'm getting frustrated. I might leave and take my check over to Chase and deposit it in my account there, right? And so therefore, are those customers that are going to be standing in line there not stakeholders as well? So Then you got to think about how do we effectively communicate with those stakeholders. Maybe we put a sign right outside of the branch, whatever it is. But I encourage you to take a look at the breadth of your stakeholders and who's truly impacted, not just the people that are going to be utilizing the system. Next one, communication activities. A lot of the communication plans I see are emails. Maybe they have a newsletter. But really, what communication activities, don't take that plate, I'm not done. What communication activities are any opportunity you have to, if you're following the ADCAR model, to create awareness and create desire in those that are out there. I had a project I was working on in Texas, and it was an EMR implementation. And this EMR implementation, we were doing our assessments and all that, and we had a great communications plan, but our assessments came back to tell us that the nurses feel like they were not being communicated with because they weren't checking their emails. They didn't have time to go read these newsletters, and so they feel like they weren't being a part of it. I had to change something. What did I do? I instituted a roadshow program. That is where I took groups of project people to each nursing unit for 2 hours per shift. And we sat right there in their break room. Right in their break room with demo units. They had the project people that were working directly on building their aspect of the software so they could ask their hard questions. They can get their concerns answered. They could provide feedback directly to the project team, and they could have a face to go with who the project is. And I made sure they didn't miss it, because I had cookies and a fruit tray, so even dieting was no excuse. But it was bringing the communications to what they needed to get what they needed, and that was a very, very successful EMR implementation out of Texas. Another one is covert resistance. Maybe it's just the United States Marine in me. I just kind of like the covert aspect of, trying to find that undercover stuff. But the covert resistance isn't something that a lot of leaders pay attention to because it's not the bleeding, screaming baby that they see that they need to take care of right now. So how do we address this covert resistance? Proactively. By leveraging a framework like ADCAR and leveraging our methodologies to get the communications out there, to help build that awareness, help build that desire, making sure we have our managers doing the coaching individually, providing the feedback up to the team. What do we need to be really doing right now to help these people out? And how do we detect covert resistance? Anybody have any ideas of how you detect covert resistance? I think Joe has one. He looks contemplative. What is it, Joe?
You bug their phones.
You bug their phones. We are not going to mess with Joe. Any other ideas?
The grapevine.
What's that?
The grapevine.
Through the grapevine, right? You kind of hear about it. People are being unhappy, talking about it by the scuttlebutt. People could be missing meetings. Just not interested in talking about it. Look, we'll deal with this later. Or it could be something as simple as people coming to work dressed up in interview clothing. That's my favorite one. Feedback. Feedback is a huge missed opportunity because on a lot of projects I've seen where they create one feedback mechanism. Oh, we want feedback. Oh, we have surveys for feedback. But in reality, we have to create multiple channels for feedback that are easy to get to so people feel comfortable using them when they feel like they have that feedback. It could be a Dropbox, it could be a website, it could be an email address, it could be surveys. We have to make sure we include a lot of feedback channels. But what happens when you get that feedback? We have to manage it. We have to disseminate it to the right people to make sure it's utilized. And people have the need to want to be heard, right? They also have the need to see that they were heard. And so it's as simple as communicating back out. It could be an email, newsletter, intranet site. Look, thank you all for your feedback. This is what we've been hearing. This is what we're going to be doing because of it. Thank you for your feedback. Please keep submitting it. How much more likely are you going to be to receive honest and open feedback at that point if they see they're being heard? And the last one's training, especially a systems training. I see systems trainings that are like click by click, this box means this box means this, and at the end of that training, what do people walk away with? Confusion, because they had to memorize so many different boxes. When training needs to be a holistic approach, I've got a lot of training background, so I'm really passionate about this one. Training needs to be a holistic approach, a look at everything. People need to go through the entire ADCAR model in training specifically. People need to know their roles and responsibilities. They also need to know other people's roles and responsibilities. They need to see the big picture. They need to see the process flows and where they fit in it and where the other people fit in it as well. They need to see all of this. And you don't need to tell a loan officer what kind of data they need to be putting into a box that says APR. They know that. But what they need to know is when I'm looking at the system, if I want to do something, what part of the screen do I look at to be able to accomplish that? We have to teach them the critical thinking skills within the system and not beat the individual text boxes to death. So those are just some nuggets of information I have for you. Hopefully that's helpful. If anybody has any more questions about those later, please let me know. But really, in the end of all this, each one of us in the room today are going to not only be helping people with change, but we're going to be helping the people that help the people with change. And excuse me, buddy, we can't spare any change. Thank you.